with this stuff right here, the U.S. government always said we didn't have UFOs in Vietnam. These documents that were formerly classified secret, some of them even top secret, clearly indicate that we had UFOs in Vietnam. We tracked them. We tried to shoot them down. We never, at any time, made positive identification of the UFOs. As General Brown put it, we finally stopped worrying about them, and the problem went away. When he said the problem went away, UFOs didn't leave. When he said the problem went away, UFOs didn't go away. But we no longer was interested, unless they showed hostile intent, to be concerned about their presence in a war zone. Which is totally ridiculous, because if you have flying objects in a war zone, they represent a potential, and I got to stress, potential threat.
Because it's just magic right now to stay there. I'll start in Bulgarian a little bit, and then I'll introduce in Bulgarian.
Sure.
Yes. Здравейте, казвам се Иван Иванов и се намирам в Розуел, в щата Ню Мексико. За онези от вас, които не знаят нищо за Розуел, трябва да ви кажа, че тук през 1947 година космически кораб пада и от него момент до сега всъщност Розуел е известно с мястото на падналото НЛО. Имам голяма чест днес наш специален гост да бъде господин Clifford Stone, който е до мене тук, и аз съм го поканил специално за този разговор във връзка с нашата конференция, която ще се проведе в село Скалица на 10, 11 и 12, и поради това, че той не може да дойде, сме приготвили този разговор специално за вас. Mr. Stone, I announce in the Bulgarian public that I'm in Roswell, New Mexico right now, and that Roswell is popular in the world like the UFO crash site. Let's start with this, just a few words about that. What do you know about this UFO crash?
Well, in July 1947, we know that there was a crash of some type of vehicle. There are several dates that are given. I personally believe it was July 2nd, 1947, about 70 miles northwest of Roswell, New Mexico. A person by the name of Mac Brazel found the debris on the ranch that he was at, brought it into town, took it to the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office says, I haven't any idea what this is or what to do with it. I suggest you take it on out to the Army Airfield here in Roswell and ask them. He took the debris out there and saw Major Jesse Marcel, who looked at the material and went out to the crash site and saw there was a large area of this debris. And it was very unusual, and you could pick it up, fold it in your hand, open your hand up, and it would go back to its original shape. You couldn't cut it, you couldn't tear it. At one point, one soldier took a 16-pound sledgehammer to try to put a dent in it, and it wouldn't even do that. So he packaged the material up, brought it back in here. They sent a group of soldiers out there to gather all the material up and bring it back to the base. and they brought it to a place which at the time was known as Hangar 84. Now Marcel allegedly did not see the bodies, but there were bodies recovered out there also, as well as a large craft itself, aside from the debris field. That the debris field was apparently debris from the actual craft, but the way I understand it, about 4 miles northeast of the debris field is where they found the actual craft.
Somebody says that this is a weather balloon. Somebody says that it's something natural. What do you think?
Oh, well, initially they said it was a weather balloon, but even then it was thought that that was a cover story. And they actually brought in there at 8th Air Force Headquarters a torn up, aged weather balloon complete with rolling target. And Marcel, if you look at the picture where he's holding it up, he's very disgruntled, yet he couldn't say anything. He was an Army officer, and he had to keep quiet. But he was told to hold the debris up. This is what you found, knowing it's not what he found. He was very familiar with weather balloon devices and rolling targets. In 1994, 97 time frame, the Air Force went ahead and had people to go, 2 officers, to do a report to search for what this could have been. The best answer, which is actually the best guess they could come up with, was that the debris was possibly from a Project Mogul balloon. And everybody says it was a top secret project at that time. No, it wasn't. Project Mogul is secret. The materials that have been released on Project Mogul is got the classification as secret. But if this was true, the one thing that people need to know that Holloman Airfield on July the 9th released the full story about what they call the balloon trains.
So behind that cover-up story, what is the real story?
The real story is that we recovered what I believe at least 2, possibly 3 alien craft that did not originate from this planet nor within the solar system. And a lot of people disagree originate from this planet nor within the solar system. And a lot of people disagree with what I'm about to say, but I don't believe they were brought down by storms, because the atmospheric environment of other planets which they would have gone to is much more ferocious than what we have here. I honestly believe at the time the Army Signal Corps was working on a high-resolution quantum-emitting radar that was known as Project Diana, and that radar interfered with their guidance system and brought that 1 or more craft down. When our visitors found out that certain types of radar would have an impact on their guidance system, they immediately corrected that problem, and that stopped the crashes. Crashes are very, very rare. They do occur. They have occurred since then. But also people need to understand, when we say that we went out and recovered a crash site, we went out there to recover artifacts that they left behind, or debris that they left behind.
So you spent almost half of your life in the service in the military with the operations of discovering of these unusual aircrafts and beings from another worlds. What do you think about it? I would like, my question is very clear, and are they really exist?
Some UFOs
And aliens, of course.
are of extraterrestrial origin,
Yeah.
but the answer is not as simple as that, because the end result is their mode of transportation to get here, the way they travel, the vast distances within space. They actually use what we call traversable wormholes. They use a mode of transportation where you're not going faster than the speed of light, but they're manipulating space-time to get from point A to point B. This actually requires interdimensional travel, what we call multiverse travel. And with that being the case, some of our visitors are also multidimensional, not just necessarily within the realm of our known universe, but outside of it. But highly intelligent, because there's a technology that's involved. There's an intelligence that's involved. They aren't gods, they aren't angels, they aren't devils. They are sentient beings that are much more technologically advanced than we are, but a whole lot more spiritually evolved than we are. And the reason I bring up spirituality and evolving to a higher state, with technology becomes also a responsibility. Back during the Cold War, our idea of fighting a thermonuclear war was what we called the acronym MAD, Mutual Assured Destruction. In short, you may kill me, but before I die, I will kill you. And that was our whole concept. Well, if you don't grow spiritually with that technology, ultimately, you as a society fall victim to that technology. The end result, you as a species cease to exist.
I remember during that press conference in Washington, in the White House, the National Press Club, you testified that you recognize 75 different kinds.
The exact number was 57.
57.
We had cataloged 57 different species.
How you catalyze this?
Well, these were species that they knew were visiting planet Earth. These were species that they had gotten wind of, and the interesting thing is, the scientific concept is to be able to take things into a laboratory, dissect it, go over it, break down its basic components, and then you know for sure it's real. With the UFO investigation, you can't do that. Because one, limited people have limited contact with it. But what you do have is eyewitness accounts of the various species. You have a government that has had much more interaction with the various species. So compiling all this information together, they actually formulated a book that's several hundred pages in length that goes ahead, identifies certain traits, characteristics of each individual species, and in many cases, even the locations where they come from. They also had a section in there on how to deal with them as far as taking care of them with medical requirements. But this book was highly classified. It was top secret, sensitive, compartmented, as far as who could see it and who could have access with it or to it. And at the time that I had access to it, where I got to see it, where I got to glean the pages a couple times, at that time, I'll just come out and say it, they had 10 copies. Because on the document itself, it's got copy such and such of number of copies. So, I can't tell you whether the copies I was looking at was copy 1 or copy 2, but say copy 2, so it'd say copy 2 of 10 copies. And those were the only copies. You could not reproduce it. The operations officer at each site, when they would have a blue fly moon dust operation, the operations officer would be the one that had that book. He would share that book with the medical personnel that showed up, because first aid, as we understand it, does not necessarily work for all of our visitors that were coming here.
What is your guess how many people from Congress or the American government familiar with this aliens and UFOs?
Oh, very few. And Congress and sometimes even the president is taken out of the loop. And when people ask how can that be, it's real simple. When the bogus documents known as the MJ-12 started to surface, they had several terms in there. The only reason people didn't get court-martialed and brought up on federal espionage charges when those documents surfaced was because it would expose the actual nature of the code word that was being used within those documents. And the code word itself, standalone just by the word, it was classified secret. When it was used in context of actually what it was, then it was top secret, but it was highly compartmentalized. And you had to be cleared for that particular information that was protected by that code word. And the word was Snowbird. And of course they stated, oh, well, Snowbird was used to test fly what they called IACs, which was supposed to stand for Identified Alien Craft. Remember that term, we're coming back to it. Well, actually, Snowbird was a code word for our second attempt to free the hostages from Iran. The documentation remained classified all the way up from 1980 all the way to 1998 when it was declassified. Now, being declassified doesn't mean it became public knowledge. It was considered military critical, which means it's not classified, but it's not available to the public. The information showed military capability, technologies, and even identified sources. And if those sources became known, since they were in foreign countries, they could be killed. So naturally, we wanted to protect them. But the name, during the time it was classified, still heavily compartmented, became compromised because a couple of people in OSI and Air Force Intelligence exposed the term Snowbird. OSI was directed to do an investigation in conjunction with the Federal Bureau of Investigation to identify the people who were involved. They did their job. They found out. Now the question was, if we court-martialed the military people involved, we would have a problem there because some of the information would now get public exposure, which could possibly, if it had not already, lead to the deaths of certain foreign nationals in foreign countries that was aiding us in our efforts to get our hostages out of Iran when Iran fell. So we chose not to court-martial, we chose not to bring up charges. But then the MJ-12 documents took on a life of their own. Snowbird never, ever had anything to do with UFOs. What they were talking about, that was real. But that code word was what the government was concerned about. Not because it had something to do with UFOs, because it could cost people their lives. And we couldn't do anything about it, because to do so would expose critical information that would have the same result.
During your military service for all these years, have you seen the aliens or extraterrestrial beings?
Make it quite clear, when I was in the military, I had a normal job like anyone else.
Yeah.
But let's say I had special talents.
Okay.
So if I was in a geographical location where a UFO event occurred, where a UFO went down or their debris are, we had the actual living entities, then particularly there, my services would be required. During the 22 and a half years in the service, there were about 12 events that I was called in on, which dealt with the recovery of alien spacecraft that did not originate on the face of this planet. There were bodies recovered. There were living entities. And
so
from
you
time
saw
to time,
them?
I saw them. I was right there. It's not something that somebody can come in and say, oh, it was a dream. Oh, well, no, it didn't happen. No, it happened. I was right there. I went through the briefing where they were trying to tell us it was an experimental aircraft, where it was a spacecraft of our own. And then I went through the debriefing.
How they looks, the extraterrestrial?
How does an American look? How does a Japanese look? How does a Chinese look?
Yeah, but all the humans.
Oh, they're all humans? What do they look like? I'm doing this for a reason. When somebody comes up, well, what does an alien look like? There's no way to go ahead and to state how they look like. They have different features. You have your basic grays. There's about 3 types of grays. And facial differences, and in some instances body structure, is how you distinguish between the 3 various types. You have some that look just as human as us, but there are differences. And the differences are, they know what you're thinking. And is it psychic abilities? Could be, but I also know that there's a technology behind the things they can do. You have some that look like hairy midgets, and there's several types of those. You have some that are almost like pure energy, but living energy, and you know, they have a lifespan. They die, just like any of us. The one that I'm close to, he's green. Some people would even try to say that he's reptilian, and I'd like to suggest he would take offense to suggest that he is a lizard. The skin, you know, like if you ever seen like the little green lizards, the skin's a little similar to that, but much more smoother to the touch. I can't say scales.
Have you touched them?
Oh yes.
Then what do you feel? It's warm or cold or?
I never actually took notice whether it was warm or cold. You know, I mean, there's a lot of things that people think that you do. Well, no, because what you want to do, and my granddaughter said it best when I was explaining to her what I did. She says, "Grandfather, I want to live a normal life." And I told her, "You will, honey. This only involves me." But the situation is, when you're doing these things, you want that event to be your last event. You always have this anxiety when you have an event that occurs. And you think, okay, well, you did it one time, so you're going to be used to it. The second one, no, you're not used to it. Something's going on inside you. But the one thing you really know you don't want to do.
You say that some way they change you?
No.
For good?
Yeah, well, it changes you for good. I mean, I was brought up to believe that God created all the stars and the planets and the moon just for us earthlings. When I had the awakening that we aren't the only ones in the universe, we aren't the most significant creatures that God created, then I had to deal with that. Where do we fit in God's scheme of things? And I ask questions about that. And the best they can do is tell you that which you call God exists. We can't tell you who or what God is, because we don't know. Now, people go ahead and essentially, oh, well, if you're seeing these things, they're devils, they're demons. And they're not devils, they're not demons, they're not angels, they're not gods. They believe in an sentient being even more closely than we do, because it's no longer something you have to accept on faith. They have scientific knowledge to back up their concept that really somebody created all this. It didn't just happen. They know that there's more than just this life. And it becomes very perplexing. But when you get out of the field where you no longer have to do this, where it's no longer supposed to be part of your life, you really don't want to talk about it. And the reason you don't want to talk about it is because it has an impact on you, it has an impact on your family, and there has to be a catalyst. There has to be a higher reason for you want to expose yourself to, shall I say, this madness of exposing what no government in the world wants people to know, that we aren't alone in the universe, and we aren't even the most significant creatures in God's creations.
How do you feel emotionally with meeting like that?
Well, you can get very emotional. That's why I'm
Like
trying to avoid.
You were scared?
Oh,
or...
as a kid, I was very scared. I mean, when I had my little friends, they looked like just other children.
Mm-hmm.
Not a problem. Felt nothing, no fear. When I got to see the one look like what he really looked like, now I knew these wasn't children. Now I had fear. Russia has not given it up, and several of the former Soviet states have not given it up. They still do research into it. They do a whole lot more than we do. They also do research into UFOs, which they don't tell their public about. The same with us. It's a self-keeping secret.
Why people need to know the truth about that? And why the government keeps secret all this informations about UFO and extraterrestrial?
The reason people need to know the truth about it is maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe day after tomorrow. That person has that event of high strangeness. It's going to change his life forever, his or her life, forever. They will never ever be the same. They can never go back to that point that they were before having that experience. Be it where they see a UFO close up and personal, or an actual ship on the ground, and have interaction with the entities, or just see the entities. Their life has changed forever. They may have never ever believed in UFOs before. They may have never ever believed in extraterrestrial life. And they're very religious concepts of all this being just for us. And God didn't create any other living creatures out there. All of that comes to an end. And now the question is, how do you deal with this for the rest of your life? The other situation is where, like with me, you get chosen. They're going to follow you throughout life. They're not going to mandate your life. They're not going to interact with your life. You're going to live your life. But they're going to learn from your society on what they learn from you by following you throughout life. And you're selected for this type of situation at a very young age. And as a child. Now, you have people out there that have nothing to do with UFOs, who don't go talk, they don't go and appear before camera, they try to live a normal life, because that's what they want. Yet, what's going on in their lives, the events that they had, even if it's just an event where they had that one event of high strangeness, it's affecting them throughout life. And my whole purpose of coming out and talking, and even if it makes me look like a fool, it don't bother me no more. Because it's not about me. It's about telling these other people, you're not alone. Other people have had experiences. And darn any government that goes ahead and tries to keep it classified. because it's not their secret to keep. Eventually, there's going to be that event where they cannot cover it up no more. When that happens, we're going to have sheer panic on the 4th of July. And what we need is to have it where people can go ahead and say, you know, this reality doesn't shake my foundation, my beliefs of who I am, what I am, and how I fit in the galactic scheme of things. I serve a purpose, and there's a reason I'm here. And just because there are other entities that are out there in the cosmos doesn't change my understanding of who and what I am, and my significance, how I fit in the galactic scheme of things. And these are things people need to be prepared for. Because if you believe the world is flat and held up on pillars, then you're already behind the times. But if you are caught in religious concepts that deny the reality of the existence of higher life forms in us, then you are also behind the times, and you're not prepared for what's coming in the future. And I say this, and I say it as telling you right up front, I'm a Catholic, and I shall die a Catholic. Knowing what I know does not shake my belief one iota. I still worship on bended knees. I still give to the church. But I feel also I'm much closer to God and an understanding of God by virtue of having sheer knowledge. We're not alone in the universe. And these other highly evolved, intelligent lives, they too know of God.
Yeah. Mr. Stone, now you have opportunity to share your testimony with Bulgarian audience. What message you can share with the Bulgarians?
Real simple. They're here. They aren't going away. As time progresses, we're going to have more visitors come here. That number, 57, it's going to grow. It may have already grown. We have nothing to fear from them. If they have the intelligence to come here, they have went ahead and have gotten that spiritual growth that you need to grow with your technology. We're in a dangerous avenue right now. We have to decide, are we going to go ahead and grow spiritually as our technology expands? If not, one of two things is going to happen. We either grow spirituality with our technology, where we too become space travelers, we go out amongst the cosmos, and someday we become someone else's UFOs. Or we fall victim to our technology, and we cease existing as a species. But for the short term, we need to prepare the world to come to the realization that I believe within the shorter distance as opposed to a longer distance, that we are going to be faced with the sure knowledge that we aren't alone in the universe. And when that day happens, when there's beyond deniability, the peoples of the world, not just the United States, but every country on the globe, every culture is going to have to be prepared to accept the fact that we are not alone in the universe. And that way we avoid panic, that way we can grow in understanding, we can grow in knowledge, and we can grow in our spirituality. And we eventually come to a realization that we, the people of Earth, while we share many diverse cultures, diverse religions, beliefs, concepts, we are united in one thing. We all make up the species here on Earth. We make up the human race. And we should be united by those things that we share and not divided by those things and concepts that we have within our cultures and our religious concepts that divide us. In short, we need to learn tolerance of others and not be so quick to condemn, judge, and want to kill because of our lack of understanding of others.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Stone.